What's up, dedicated Dragon Ball denizens? I'm Ryan, and we're here for another episode of the Hawks Dragon Ball Nest. I've got something fun for this week. It's not necessarily the most competitive deck out there. It's not going to win you any regionals or anything, but it's a deck to bring to locals and have some fun. That's going to win you some matches here and there, which is my what I call Ultra Crit Vegeta, kind of the yellow Daima Vegeta, but the Super Saiyan 3 one, of course. And we're kind of focusing on some crit. We're focusing on getting some blockers out there and having some fun. So I'll go over each card in the deck, why I included it, the strategy on how to play, the strengths and the weaknesses of it, and then a couple other cards to consider swapping in. In this case, there's not too many. So let's go. All right, and as usual, the deck list is up there. On the left-hand side, you'll see it's a pretty condensed list. You know, we've got exactly 50, a lot of 4-ofs, only a couple 1s and 2s in there. Really wanting to just kind of do one thing. You know, it's a very specific style of deck. So let's start with the leader. Of course, for those of you that don't know, it is the Vegeta Mini. It's one of the starter decks, FS8, right? Starter deck 8. So basic leader on the front side, 15k, draw a card on attack, and awakening at 4. Then on his backside, well, now he's Super Saiyan 3, let's go. When attacking once per turn, draw a card. Then if you have a rest mode battle card with a cost of 2 or more and D8 in its card name in your battle area, switch this card to active mode. So basically, as long as you rest a 2 or more Daima card, then he's going to be able to switch back to active mode. So we want to basically build the deck as much around that as possible. And I've already released a video on this. You know, I really tried making the deck work. It's a really fun deck, but it just has a lot of weaknesses in this meta. It needs a lot more support, and we'll see if it ever gets it. But anyway, here's some ideas that I've gotten, and it did get a couple cards that can really change the way that you build the deck. So let's go over them first. So let's start here. We're going to talk about Babidi, right? So this Babidi, why would we put Babidi in this deck? How is he going to work? Now, he is kind of the terror of the format right now with Kid Buu and even Buhan and all of that. So he was released in the Manga Set, 5k, 2 cost, 5k defense, or sorry, combo power. Babidi. Okay, so he's barrier. So your opponent can't do anything with him. You put him on the board and he hangs out all game. So then his ability. End of your turn, choose up to 1 battle card with Majin or Wicked Soul in its special traits in your battle area. Switch it to active mode and it gains blocker until the end of your opponent's next turn. Interesting. So Majin, we don't have any Majin Buus out there. Majin Vegeta even went by the wayside. Wicked Soul, no. But what about these guys? So basically now we are building around these guys. So that Babidi can make any of our Majin Kuu or Duu into blockers. Now, they're not the best blockers, let's be real. Especially, I mean, this one's, what is it going to block? Nothing. They're 25k still yet, but maybe this one. Now, there is a very interesting interaction with this one. Now, notice this one's an interesting card, not one that's really played much, because despite its 30k attack and 10k combo power, the ability, as you would call it, permanent. This card in a battle area can't be switched to active mode during a charge phase. So basically, if you're going to play him out, cool, he's a 3 cost, you're going to get a 30k hit in, and then he's just going to hang out all game. He's not going to be able to do anything, so not very good. However, let's come back to Babidi. Switch that card to active mode. So we get in very interesting interaction here to where now we can actually attack with this guy, and we can switch him back to active mode and make him a blocker on your opponent's turn. Now you have a 30k blocker, or if you decide not to block, then you're able to attack with him again next turn. So it's kind of interesting, kind of cool, and he's still a 10k combo in hand. So that's kind of cool. I mean, it doesn't break the deck or anything. It doesn't break the game, but it's a pretty interesting interaction, right? So we've got that. So then let's talk about this. Before we move on. Now, the Duu and Kuus to play out, if you're just playing out a 3 cost Majin Duu and Kuu card alone, like, they're just not great, okay? And the facts are, even if that blocker, like, they wouldn't really be worth playing and making this deck around without Dr. Arinsu. So what Arinsu does is, on play, during the turn, next time you use a Majin Kuu or Duu, reduce the cost by 2. Not bad. So we're actually able, as long as we play her out now for 4 energy, we're kind of spamming our board with the Duu and Kuus, and we're able to then use her activate main once per turn, switch a card in your battle area to rest mode and draw a card. So now we're able to kind of replace that extra card that she's throwing out there on play, and even turns after if she sticks on the board. So we're kind of getting this cool interaction of just spamming out bodies that Buu can then make into blockers that your opponent either has to remove or just admit the fact that they're going to get one of their attacks blocked. So it really gives this deck something it needed. Like, it's a very aggro-y deck, but it just had no defense, and it ran out of steam really quickly. And while it's not the best defense, it at least has something going for it now. So that was interesting. Now again, that alone still is not going to be enough. But what else did we get was this promo card. That's a really, really interesting card. Permanent, your turn. If this card in a battle area is in rest mode, your Vegeta Mini DA leader gains critical. And then on play, you can add a life to your hand. So it's a 3-cost 20k. So not a big attacker. I'm not a really big fan of 20k attackers, but it has 10k combo, and then you're making your leader into a crit leader. So it's really interesting, the fact that you can actually attack with him. He goes into rest mode, and now we're gaining 2 critical hits at our opponent. So cool, very cool interaction. And then if you'll notice too, let's come back a second, one of these Majin Duus is a crit. So we've actually now added a couple more dimensions to this deck that it didn't have before. Being an aggro-y double attacker, now we can be an aggro-y critical focused attacking deck that also has a little bit of defense. So it really makes this deck a little bit wacky in that. So those are kind of how this deck is built around the fact that we want these Majin Duu and Kuus, and we also want to be getting some crit hits in whenever we can, which at the end of the day is another way of pressuring your opponent. So that's that. Let's start from the beginning. We've got 4 Piccolo mini cantrips. Definitely want those in there. Now there's this one. I'm not entirely sure how useful the Jeice is, but you know, we do need another 2 cost in case we don't get that Babidi, which is pretty common. We're not running any searchers in this deck for Majins either. So the Jeice is a nice self-awakener, and then we can crit, kind of start that crit early. If you want to save him for later, you're probably not playing him out later, but you know, he's there. So we're going to only run 2, and then of course we've got the 4 Bulma. So from that, it's pretty straightforward, right? 4 of her, we pretty much want 4 of all of these Majins so that we're able to spam them. It's unfortunate this is it. Like, it's really unfortunate that is entirety of them. If we get some more Majin Duu or Kuu cards in the future, this deck can really go somewhere, because they're just not great cards. They're just not, you know. So that's one thing. Then I'm having just 2 of these Vegeta Mini DAs. I find that, like, I'm not really playing him out too often. Sometimes now the crazy thing about this deck is it starts to get a little bit more stally. So I am actually running up until I'm hitting 7 energy sometimes. So if you do hit 7, which is kind of crazy to think about, a good play would be to play him out, boost your leader to 30. Then you've got a 30 attack, so him out, and then your leader's got crit. So you've got a 20k, you've got a 30k, and then you've got 2 20 crits at your opponent that can kind of help. It's a little bit underrated what crit does late game, right? I threw 1 golden Frieza in there, which I think is really good. I decided to throw this one in one of the later iterations of the original deck, and I found it to be pretty useful. Get your opponent to 2 and just end things. And then this Vegeta Mini, I am only going with 2 as well. It's kind of similar in that, like, we're really focused on getting these kind of smaller bodies on board rather than like this big dog Vegeta. You know, we're wanting to play Arinsu as much as possible, draw a card off of her, play out our Majin Duu and Kuu for free, turn him into a blocker, make sure we've got someone on the board. So he's out there. The Dende as the super combo, choose which one you want. Now, the Planet of Megas is even more necessary than ever in this deck, because we do want to use Arinsu to draw, and we do want to rest our Planet of Mega card to do that. And I'll even play it out as a cantrip, you know, remembering that this thing is 0 combo in hand. So definitely play it out. You can get that draw off of it. I've got the 2 Blue Power Awakenings because the deck just dies if like Gogeta comes out and you can't get rid of it. And it's actually like the only removal we have at all, which is kind of sad because it's 6 or more. We have a little bit more. We have the 2 Final Explosions as well, right? And honestly, like, I really try not to use them. It just kind of slows the deck down. You know, if you've got that Babidi out there, you want to get the blockers up. Sometimes it's better to attack and absorb an attack rather than with the blocker, rather than wasting our energy on the final explosion. Alright, now the strategy, strengths, and weaknesses of the deck. We're definitely wanting to spam out Arinsu and RDA Majins, right? That's really where it's at. We can deal pressure. We can hit for 25 on 1 with her, draw a card, and then hit for anywhere between 20 and 30k from there, and then use them as a blocker after that. So you get a lot of value out of 4 energy. You're getting 2 attackers and a blocker next turn. Obviously they can easily remove a 3 cost, but it still costs them something. It's going to cost them energy to remove that person, or wasting an attack to go into them. So it's pretty nice. And then you're going to use them as blockers. And then really, like, the critical stuff in terms of especially like this Vegeta, right? Use him later. You know, early on, we're really like trying to set ourselves up. So obviously, if you don't pull the Babidi, you can play out the Jeice. But, you know, usually from there, you know, you're wanting to start playing out the Arinsus. So you don't have a ton of opportunities to throw this guy out until like we're finishing the game, and not really necessary, right? We're kind of whittling them down to where once they're at about 3 life, a lot of times we can just finish the game, because you get them down so much to where you're going to hit them for a couple crits, they lose those cards. And then if you've got enough on board, which a lot of times you are, remember, we're spamming out Arinsus and Kuus every turn, so it's not that hard to defend at least one of those 2. Usually Arinsu is the one you want to defend. And then, you know, you can potentially get yourself a couple Arinsus on board, so by the time you're playing out the Vegeta, you've got attacks. You know, you've got some multiple attacks going into your opponent. And if they can't stop 2 crits from your lead in a row, like, it's going to be over for that final attack because their hand is down. So you really want to work on finishing them off with the crit, getting them from 3 to 2 life with the crit hits, and kind of go from there. You know, don't be afraid either. This is actually something I just thought of now. Don't be afraid to use Arinsu to rest him, because what your opponent's going to do a lot of times, if they have a clear board, then they're going to take the hit from the Vegeta. This guy is a 20k to get that card in hand to be able to defend against the crits moving forward. So don't even be afraid to rest him with Arinsu to draw the card if you have to. If you think that it's going to be the difference between them drawing and being able to defend those crits, right? In terms of strengths, yeah, it's got, I mean, it's kind of got a lot going for it. I put aggro and crit, but it's also got some defense with the blockers. Like, it's pretty wild. It's got a solid draw engine. You know, it's kind of rare to get yourself good draw engines in Fusion World, but, you know, if you can keep those Arinsus flowing, and get yourself some nice draw powers with our fields, playing out them in our cantrips, like, we're doing pretty well for ourselves out there, right? It's got some surprisingly good synergy. The fact that the Arinsu and the Babidi just work so well with each other. Babidi only costs you 2, and then once you get to that 4 energy, so you've kind of got this weird turn 3 of just doing whatever you can, probably trying to awaken or not, and then from turn 4 on, you're going to be hopefully spamming those Doos and Kuus out there, right? So that's pretty cool. Weaknesses, though, it still has admittedly like a lot of weaknesses. I like, I actually got really excited for this deck in my head and thought, like, oh, you know what? We might have something here. Like, we might have something. And it's a good deck, but it still is not standing up to the meta. Like, let's be real. Like, it is not standing up to Kid Buu. It's not standing up to Cell. Like, it's going to struggle even against, like, tier 2 decks, tier 1 decks, like Vegeta, Green Manga Vegeta, Shallot, and things like that. But it's a really fun deck. But here's its problems is like no removal. Like we have noticed all of these cards that we're wanting to play out are barriers and blockers and Arinsus and draws, but we don't have reliable ways to remove the board. We also don't even have like big attackers to attack into their board. So even though this deck can kind of stall out a little bit, like you're sometimes not putting enough pressure on your opponent to close things out before you run out of gas. So that can be an issue, right? That could be a big issue. You've got this guy and you want to try to strategically use him if you've got a Babidi to get you some solid pressure, but like that's it, you know. So the card power is really weak. You know, you've got your 2/4 costs, but a lot of times they're not the best play. You know, you've got that, and then obviously you've got this guy who can attack twice. He does give you some removal there, but like I said, you know, you've got to play him strategically because he doesn't always help you win the game, unfortunately, at least with this deck, right? There's low combo power. There's a lot of zeros. You know, we've got these, which I reduced to 2 each. Arinsu, obviously, we're playing at a 4, and she's 0. And then we've got a lot of 5s. The problem is we do have a couple of these 10s, but like you don't want to combo him away. Like this is a guy you want to play on board because of his 30k hit and the fact that Babidi can cheat him back out. I usually find myself comboing him because you only need 1, maybe 2, but other than that, like those are our only 10ks. Think about that. That is rough. I've been to the points in games where I've got, you know, a couple blue powers and final explosions, and I'm sitting there with 7 cards in 10k combo. Like, it's rough. That's one rough thing about this deck, that there's not a good way around. And maybe there is, you know, maybe if we're a little bit more flexible, but we would just take away the strengths of this deck. Now, speaking of combo power, you know, initially I kind of wanted to get this Majin Buu in there as another crit. He has 25k, but he has 0 combo. And he's also not a DA, so if he is if he is the only one I'm playing out, number 1, I can't play him out with Arinsu. Number 2, if I play him out, then he's going to be the one that he's in rest mode. My Vegeta's not attacking twice. You know, he would be like literally the only time this card would be good to play would be turn 3. He also unfortunately can't take advantage of the when KO'd ability because our leader doesn't have Majin in it. So that's unfortunate. And so I mean, I highly doubt we would play Majin Buu Kid in this deck anyway, because he also has the limitation of the leader being Majin. But you know, he is a crit body 25k. I would consider him, but yet really, like, he's only going out there turn 3 to hopefully, you know, crit your opponent down before we really start going into other stuff. Now, Kraken was one that was really hard for me to take out. It's such a good card in terms of like bringing back energy and helping us span more out. This is another one that would be like a turn 3 play, and then that's it, you know, because again, we're going to be playing out that Arinsus and stuff from there. So it's really tough. It's a nice card, but I just can't really see a fit for it. You know, for example, if we really wanted to just say, you know what, I'm going to forget about these 6 cost cards, this Gogeta, I'm just going to throw him in as a 2 of, you know, it could be an option, but I don't know what else you're removing to get him in, unless, actually I do, maybe the 4 cost Vegeta, honestly, you know, the 4 cost Vegeta, he just doesn't do a lot for me in this deck, so he's one maybe I consider taking out for him. Alright, and finally, this one's going to be an odd one. It's kind of a similar idea to the Kraken, right? On one end, we get to rest somebody. He self-awakens. You know, this is kind of another one that's probably like a turn 3, and that's it. But Janemba's always a solid card because he does let you switch one energy back to active mode as well. So you could kind of play him out when maybe you're at 5. So you're playing him for 2, you still get 3. I don't know. Anyway, there's some stuff you can do, but I don't know. I just don't think so. Honestly, we're kind of grasping at straws. Like, for this deck, to me, like, the list is the list. Otherwise, we're not really doing what we want to do. And you just change the entire deck. You know, just remove the Babidis out and maybe remove the Arinsus and stuff. Alright, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Hawks Dragon Ball Nest. Hope you enjoyed my profile of the Ultra Vegeta deck. And it's a fun deck that we're going to get that Babidi, we're going to get Arinsu, and we're going to start spamming out these Daima Majins out there. So, pretty fun. So, if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit that subscribe button and become part of the Hawks Nest. We're a fearless flock of fabulous folks who love to do what we love. Now, I'll probably go back to androids next week. I'm still kind of tinkering with the list a little bit, but I really went with the Vegeta Mini for a couple reasons. Number one is I was really excited to get this deck out there. Like, I kind of almost had it as a bonus, but some full disclosure, I last minute got the opportunity to work at Comic-Con in San Diego. To actually work the event over the weekend, and the weekends when I make all my content. So I was like, oh, if that's gonna happen, I need to get I need to get my videos together during the week. I'd already been tinkering with this list for fun anyway, so yeah, we'll see it in battle later this week on Saturday, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But until then, we'll see you next time.